Hello all, this is Mr. Lucid LJ here, back with another audio commentary for you guys here today. It's been a while since my last video. I've just kind of been busy and stuff, and started a new job there a couple of weeks ago too. Just thought I'd come up here and kind of do a response to the Lexman and Mr. Packin from British Fist, and kind of talk about something those guys were talking about Daniel Bryan being a draw and stuff. Kind of going to go through the history of Daniel Bryan first before I actually talk about if he is a draw or if he isn't a draw. So, he started off in NXT as kind of a good prospect and, had Miz as his mentor, but the problem with that is that Miz buried him and never actually put him over as a, legitimate talent, which he kind of was in ring. Maybe his promos weren't the best, maybe his gimmick wasn't the best, but he had something. He had a decent look about him, at least, as a possible good, strong mid-carder at worst, maybe upper mid-carder, and if he added more muscle and definition, possibly main event. But, he just lost every freaking match he was on NXT, which just, it endeared him to the fans, but at the same time, it kind of made him look like a complete geek and a loser. So, I think that was a really bad idea, having him lose every possibly in-ring. He was maybe the best guy they had on the NXT's first season. We saw him cut some really good promos on Michael Cole and stuff like that. We saw him cut some promos on The Miz and how, WWE holds guys like this back and all that. So, that was alright, but I don't think he really got over in NXT. Then we saw him join the Nexus after that and turn kind of heel because he was face at the time. And he actually got fired for being too violent and choking out Justin Roberts. So, that was kind of a silly thing to do, like fire him over such a little thing where you could have done way more crazy shit 10, 15 years ago. So that just goes to show the PG crap comes into play. Then we seen fans wanting him back as a petition. He came back as a face because he turned heel and actually went on the WWE Slam team. And, did really well in the match. Good crowd reaction, did really good in-ring work. He seemed to be, beating guys and stuff and, looked well. He didn't, come out of the match like Super Cena did and actually win the match, but he looked very strong and, I thought he got over decent in that match. After that, then we seen him actually feud with The Miz over a good few pay-per-view matches for the US title. Actually bet him for the US title, I think it was at Night of Champions 2010. Had a few other matches with him, Ziggler, Morrison, DiBiase. And, was having a really good run at that time as the US champion. But after that, from December to March, he just didn't do much. And, he wasn't on pay-per-view anymore. Just having dark matches against random guys. No kind of proper feuds like he was having against these other guys. So it kind of devalued his run then after. Then at WrestleMania, he got bumped off the main show and put on the pre-show and actually lost the title on the pre-show to Sheamus. So that just goes to show in a year he went from loser to somewhat rebuilt to a decent package, but really he didn't do much. He did a little bit with the US title. He could have done more, I feel, and I think they should have booked him way more stronger on NXT to kind of put him over as a legitimate talent. So after the loss to Sheamus, which was a really bad way to lose the title, getting bumped onto the pre-show, he actually got drafted to SmackDown, where from around WrestleMania to SummerSlam, it didn't do too much, or the summertime really. He had kind of a feud with Cody Rhodes, a little mini feud, but I don't think that really kicked off into anything proper because I don't think they actually had any pay-per-view matches to carry the feud and stuff, and I don't really know what the feud was over, so there wasn't much in that. 2011's Money in the Bank, you go in, he gets added to the Money in the Bank, the SmackDown one, and out of a list of 8 guys, he was probably 5th or 6th guy to possibly win the match, and surprisingly won the match, which personally I find quite random, and didn't really see the point of how this would actually help him to get over. So, yeah, that's another notch against him. The only good part of his run so far was the mid-card run and actually feuding with The Miz and stuff. And after that, it's kind of just been there. So, he actually has a match against Wade Barrett and loses that at SummerSlam, and then pretty much doesn't get featured on any pay-per-view or any upper mid-card main event feuds to progress him from a potential mid-carder to main event. So that kind of annoys me too, they don't actually bother investing the time and stuff into him to actually progress him from a mid-card to main event. And then, when we actually see the cash-in, he actually cashes it in on a Big Show who hasn't won the freaking title in like a decade. So far you've got so many problems with just how he's been booked. And this doesn't even look into other things like his in-ring skills, his pro mobility, gimmick, or anything like that. This is just how he's getting presented and booked on a weekly, monthly basis for a year and a half. So after that, he wins the title, doesn't really do much in that either, has it for a couple of months, and then loses it. He's having matches against guys like Big Show and Mark Henry for the world title. These are not the matches you want Daniel Bryan to see for possible world championship matches and feuds. You want more opponents who are on his scale, his size. It's more like the David and Goliath story with these two competitors, and it's he never won in convincing fashion either. I know he was heel then because he turned heel kind of when he cashed on Big Show. So I just didn't like his run. I just thought it was poorly booked. And around this time, he kind of got involved with AJ as well. Kind of being a controlling kind of a guy or whatever. But anyway, we'll just talk about the WrestleMania 28. He actually got bumped to the start of the show, like the opener, and lost in 18 seconds, which is just more poor booking of Daniel Bryan. He got the rematch after on pay-per-view against Sheamus, which was probably one of the better matches of 2012, but wasn't able to recapture the gold, but looked decent for a change on pay-per-view, even in defeat. So he was just like booked dreadfully as a world champion, was randomly given the Money in the Bank. So far his run isn't that special at all. And after all these losses, all these controversy, he actually gets pushed randomly to the WWE title when, in fact, he's not even on the freaking same show as the champion. He's actually on the opposite show. So this was more randomness. This was more like internet fans wanting to see him against Punk. But the environment was just set up in a way that didn't make any logical sense. It was just randomly pushed out of nowhere. The two had some very good matches. They had some good promos together. Some decent back and forth. There was some conflict, but I just don't feel that Daniel Bryan deserved that chance at WWE title. I just feel it was too random and, just didn't deserve it. He was acting really jealous as this jealous boyfriend to AJ, acting mental, telling her what to do, all this kind of stuff. Then it caused this extra thing with Punk and AJ, her fancying him and all this other stuff, and whole Daniel Bryan wedding and all this. I just don't think that's kind of angle you really want between these two guys. I just think it should be something else over the title and, their own personal conflicts and rivalries. Because I think, Bryan was the heel at the time, Punk was the face, was WWE champion. So, they had some good pay-per-view matches, like I said, but overall I just thought it was random. And, Bryan didn't come out with the title. He looked decent, though, in the defeats. He was really competitive in the matches and, did good. But after that, he eventually got away from AJ. And at SummerSlam 2012, teamed up with Kane as a tag team. So he got really demoted after his world title run. Then randomly pushed to WWE title. Then pushed to the tag team guy. So his progression is like just all over the place. It's like one minute he's like rock bottom, then he's at the top, then he's rock bottom, then he's at the top. It just doesn't make sense to me, this whole booking of him. Around this time he started saying the yes-no gimmick and, acting really crazy and having all these skits with Kane, with a psychiatrist, Dr. Shelby and all this kind of crap. And it was alright, but it was like comedy slapstick loser mid-card gimmick. And it's like, that's the overtone of his whole career so far. It's just been a joke, really, more than someone you can actually take seriously who should be a main eventer and possibly could be a main eventer. But he was just pushed into the Hell No tag team with Kane, who wasn't doing much at the time, who actually feuded with John Cena earlier that year. Serious feud, but then he just goes to serious feud into comedy feud, and it's like so random, all these fucking bucking and pushing. So that's just another thing I didn't like. Just another thing. I mean, in the past 8 months as an actual tag team, they've done fairly well. He's got over with the yes-no gimmick, but the thing is, it's a yes-no gimmick at, mid-card. It's not a main event kind of gimmick. This is something that won't draw money. It'll draw people's intrigue. It'll have people watching and thinking some of it's funny, but at the same time, it'll kind of get old and repetitive, because I think at the stage now, it's kind of old and repetitive. So, they're kind of going their own separate ways now. They've just dropped the tag team titles to the Shield. They had a decent run as a tag team. Had some alright feuds, but, kind of brought some prestige to the tag belts again. But, nothing really special. I think the last 2 months, near the end of the, title reign and stuff, they were having some really good matches with the Shield, and actually dropped the belts to the Shield a couple of months ago. So, that was kind of good. But apart from that, just booked as comedy slapstick losers. So, and my whole thing is that, let's go on to the whole point of this video, really. He's just been booked dreadfully. Now, in Parkin's video, Mr. Parkin, a lot of people were disliking the video because they felt that, Parkin was saying stuff wrong, he wasn't saying right things. And personally, I think he was saying everything right. It's like, Daniel Bryan can be over, but after all this fucking dreadful booking and stuff, it's like, you can't just press a reset button and say to fans, just forget all the shit we've done with him, and then make him into this kind of upper mid-card main event guy out of nowhere. It's just not believable, unrealistic. And just some things that Deluxe-Man brought out, figures and facts, I found, just not right, the week against Rollins was the lowest of the figures that he mentioned in the certain people he was on about. So, people would be watching that kind of match and stuff, internet fans more than casual fans. It got 200 and something thousand views, which isn't much, but people would just be salivating over the fact that it is Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins, or Tyler Black and Bryan Danielson and all this kind of stuff. So that's probably why they tuned in. Plus, the Shield is kind of over, and they've been booked fairly well, and they've done a really good job in the past year, I think. So that's probably more of a reason to probably watch Tyler Black, because I find him interesting. Not necessarily because of his gimmick, but just the way he's presented as in the Shield. My thing is, if you put Bryan in with a guy like Zack Ryder, or someone who is presented on a lesser level than him, then you can say, let's see how the ratings would be then. Let's see how much of an audience people would watch. Would there be a gain? Would there be a loss? For me, I think if you put him in the ring with someone like that, there might be a small gain of 100,000, 150,000, but it's not going to be a couple of 100,000. You could even see people tune out, because the way Zack Ryder's being presented, and not even on frickin' TV anymore, there's no point, Right, and just a few other things to talk about. Bryan has been considered the weak link in the tag team, and now over the past couple of months, he's shown this newfound aggression. In the past year or so as well, he's been growing out his beard and all this kind of stuff, letting his hair grow longer. Now, this just seems so randomly out of nowhere. You were just a tag team there, now you're just getting pushed out of nowhere. Where is the progression? And it's been rumoured that he is going to have the WWE title match against John Cena at the pay-per-view. So it just begs the question, why are you just all of a sudden pushing this guy? Just because he gets mid-card reactions doesn't mean he should be in main event. Anyway, just to continue, sorry, I had to cut off there. Right, how is this guy a draw? let's look at it. Well, he isn't a draw because of the booking and the push that he's had in the past 3 years. It's to the point where it's just not believable this guy can actually beat legitimate people who are at, main event caliber, and main eventers who are legitimate main eventers who have been booked and pushed a lot better than Daniel Bryan. John Cena's, Randy Orton, CM Punk's. It's at the point of where it's kind of, you just don't get into it after so much bad booking. How are you meant to get into a guy like Daniel Bryan then? He's over as a mid-carder and a mid-card gimmick with the yes-no chance. In my eyes, personally, I think you need a lot more to be a main eventer. And some of the things that I'm going to list to be a main eventer are the following. Main event gimmick that would appeal more to a wide base of fans. His gimmick is just this comedy slapstick loser gimmick that's only, drawing in certain fans, internet fans, and people who are fans of him, not necessarily a wider fan base. You need to have a main event gimmick if you're going to be a main eventer. Perfect example. Someone like The Rock had this arrogant, cocky gimmick when he first, not when he first came in, but when he was with the Nation. That was his mid-card gimmick. He had to refine his gimmick to the corporate gimmick, and then into the Brahma Bull, all this kind of stuff. You have to refine your gimmick to a main event gimmick where people will actually give a shit and actually get it over, okay? Same with the in-ring style, which is my next point. Your in-ring style can't be this realistic kind of kicks to the head, real aggression, because it's like that kind of style does not appeal to the masses, or the mass audience. It only appeals to like Japanese fans, indie fans, fans of Daniel Bryan. You need a kind of in-ring style which you can still have aggression, but it's not to the point of really kicking a man in the head. That kind of stuff. I know people give out of this, but I think you still need to have a certain size. You don't have to be 6'5", you don't have to be 6'6", none of this bullshit, but at least be around the 6 foot mark to look like you're somewhat tall. Guys like Shawn, Brett were all around 6 foot to 6'2". Someone like Daniel Bryan's only like 5'8" to 5'10", something like that. And like putting him against Randy Orton, who's a 6'4" guy, he looks like a midget next to him. So you need some sort of a height next to you. Same with the muscle. You don't need to be fucking Dave Bautista muscle, but you need to be muscle where you're jacked a little bit and have some sort of definition. Someone like a Ziggler, who has muscle and definition and has a look about him. Daniel Bryan looks very scrawny. He looks too pale. Things like that are just kind of not why, like, that's putting it ticks against him why he's not a main event kind of a guy. His in-ring attire is just too generic. His look is just too generic. Have him have a bit of stubble, but not have this fucking hobo beard where he just looks like the guy out of that guy who just is a maniac. Oh, what's his name? Necro Butcher. He looks like Necro Butcher, like a younger version of Necro Butcher. Have him cut his hair to look more of a decent style, and just like style his face with a beard, like a lesser of a beard and stuff, like a beard but a short beard, like the way he used to have it, or the way he had stubble in NXT. I just don't like his look at all. I think his look has gone from dreadful, really generic, hobo kind of look. So that needs to change if you're ever thinking about pushing into main event. And then the last point, which is another main point, is your promos. If your promos are not good enough, you're not going to be a main eventer, because ultimately the promos as a main event are totally different from mid-card, and also the promo ability has to be top of the line to be going for the whole world title and actually get over the fact you can actually talk on the mic and stuff like that. So I don't think he's even there with the promo abilities. He's got decent and he's improved, but to be a main eventer, you have to have top-of-the-line promo abilities. For me, he doesn't have many of these qualities, and personally can't see him get to that level as a main eventer who can actually draw for the company. Maybe if he improves on the qualities that I've mentioned, he might get to the main event but not be a draw. Small draw, very small draw, not even seen a level draw. Maybe he could add some sort of pay-per-view buy rates and interest to the product, but overall, I don't think he will. Also, people are not mentioning the fact that, Randy Orton was in the match as well with Daniel Bryan, and Randy Orton's supposed to be one of the top 2 or 3 guys, but over recent years, because of all the wellness policy violations and other shit going on, he's kind of being de-pushed as the 5th guy or 4th or 5th guy in the company. He's not being portrayed as the top 2 or 3 guy anymore, So people have to consider that Daniel Bryan is not the main reason why, the ratings and all that are down. The gain wasn't good enough. It's also Randy Orton has to be taken into consideration for that fact too. I'll go back to the points of the ratings that the X-Man brought up. I just want to know a few questions and kind of debate a few of the points you mentioned. Where are you actually getting the facts for the numbers about 200k a week for Hell No? I don't know where you're going to get these figures from. I'd like a link or something just to prove these facts that they are actually drawing 200k. I'd also consider that Kane has more popularity than Daniel Bryan and has been in WWE longer and has a longer gimmick and all this kind of stuff. So is it really Daniel Bryan adding the 200k, or is it 75k Daniel Bryan, 125k Kane, Shield 230k, that's probably down to the booking and popularity of the Shield rather than, I think you mentioned they got 230k against the Shield sometime or whatever. So I think that's more down to the popularity of the Shield, and even 230k is a bit low considering how well they've been booked, but it's better than nothing. How much is that down to the Shield and how much is that down to Daniel Bryan? The one you mentioned about Taker, over 500k, that's mainly due to Taker. Other connects are the Shield and Kane, so I don't know how much that is of Daniel Bryan in the actual ratings there as well. The 450k plus with Ryback. Now, as badly as Ryback has been pushed, I think people can get behind a guy like Ryback for his size, look. He's got more of the main event look that Vince is looking for. Now, I'm not saying Daniel Bryan has to be like Ryback. That's not what I'm saying. He just has to have something more in his character, gimmick, promos, in-ring to be in the main event, which I don't think he deserves. So, I think Ryback is pushed as a main eventer and perceived as a main eventer, even though he's lost on pay-per-view and booked really badly. But at least he's perceived in that light as a main eventer, where Daniel Bryan is actually perceived as this mid-card comedy loser. And all of a sudden getting booked out of nowhere. So, these are all the main reasons for why I don't think he can be a main eventer. And it kind of goes for a lot of these young guys that the internet loves. Cody Rhodes, Cesaro, all these guys. They're good in-ring talents, but the problem is they have to have more of a total package, It's not all about your in-ring work. It has to be promos, gimmick, size, look. All these contributing factors have to be taken into effect. And just a final question. How often does Daniel Bryan actually get featured in Raw main events and main event of pay-per-views? Barely gets featured. Barely. And then you think he can be a draw after his shambolic push, after his shambolic booking, after what is his real highlights of his career? A decent-ish mid-card run, a few matches against Punk, and that's it. What else is there to his gimmick? Nothing. Rubbish. Booked really badly. T-shirt sales don't mean you should be a main eventer. There's all these other factors that make it where you should be a main eventer with these other factors. Not the fact that you can sell some t-shirts, so that means you should be a main eventer. Don't talk rubbish. You have to have all these factors to become a main eventer. Austin had it, Rock had it, Shawn had it, Brat had it, Taker had it. Even though Shawn wasn't the best of draws, he would draw better than someone like Daniel Bryan. And same with Taker. Brett drew decent. Austin drew obviously great. Rock, Triple H all drew a lot better. I'm not saying you have to be on the same level, but internet fans are saying, oh yeah, Daniel Bryan's a great draw and all this rubbish. He's not going to be on even the level of John Cena. And John Cena's not even the level of all them other guys I mentioned. So the fact is that I don't see him as going to be this main event player that everyone is going to perceive him to be. He's just not ready. And I don't know, will he ever be ready after this dreadful booking. So I've gone on a bit too long. This is Mr. Lucid LJ. Expect some maybe more wrestling stuff and maybe some more football videos. I've just been busy. I just thought I have to come up on here, kind of talk about this. I kind of rambled on a little bit, but I hope I've hit all the points that I wanted to talk about. So peace, good luck, bye-bye.